There you go. Woo! So we don't really have any special announcements today, but you have a topic.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about some of these abortion restrictions that are passing.
Fun times.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, very fun times that you and I are not autonomous human beings,
No.
apparently.
Yeah.
No, the three states I wanted to talk about briefly. Georgia, it's a fetal heartbeat law that just passed, which basically means that abortion's only legal up to about 6 weeks. So about the time a woman finds out she's pregnant, she can no longer have an abortion. There are exceptions in the Georgia law for cases of rape or incest, but only if the victim has filed an official police report, which is problematic because a lot of rapes are never reported for lots of reasons. In the Georgia law, abortion is punishable by up to 10 years in prison, but it's unclear who'd be charged, whether it be the woman, the doctor, or both. So that's actually...
It's surreal.
It is. That is, as some people have pointed out, the punishment for having an abortion after being raped in these states is actually more than a rapist would get, assuming you could get a conviction for it. In Alabama, the 6-week abortion ban kicks in. So it's basically you can get an abortion up to 6 weeks or up until the point you find out you're pregnant. So
Yeah, that was just bizarre, but yeah.
yes, and that is literally what the guy said. And it was a man saying this, that a woman can, of course, have any procedure she wants up until she knows she's pregnant. Yeah. Pro tip, dude, women don't go around having preemptive abortions. You know, there's no such thing. There are no exceptions for rape or incest. And in Alabama, this is a Class A felony. It's punishable by up to 99 years in prison for the doctor.
Yeah.
So,
and I just want to say, like, I heard somebody trying to say that it was being spun as, oh, he's talking about things like Plan B. But I just want to, I mean, go look at the clip yourself,
Yeah.
because it's my recollection of it is exactly what you said, that he's just like, no, none of these, none of the abortion options are being withheld from women
Right.
up until the time they know they're pregnant. Mm-hmm. And I'm just, I mean, it didn't sound to me like he was talking about a single option, or, you know what I mean?
Right.
It was like, oh, we're not stopping women from doing anything on the abortion front up until they know they're pregnant. It's like, I don't know what that means.
yeah.
I mean, I know what it means, but it makes no sense. So,
Yeah, it's really bizarre. And like I said, no exceptions for rape or incest. So basically, as soon as you know you're pregnant, you can no longer have an abortion in Alabama. And as many people have pointed out, this up to 99 years in prison, that's far more than a rapist would get for raping and impregnating a woman.
yeah.
So it's basically open season on women. Missouri just passed an 8-week abortion ban, which has provisions because it's going to get challenged. And so they've got a heartbeat rule in there. So just for people that are confused about this, what's being called a heartbeat is actually electrical activity from a primitive structure that will become a heart at some point. It's not an actual beating heart, okay? It is detectable electrical activity. But people have this idea that it's this teeny tiny little baby in there, with all its fingers and toes and stuff like that. And that's what people are getting emotionally connected to. That's what a fetus looks like at 6 weeks. It's...
Yeah, I mean, it's just. But the other thing is, I remember seeing one of the legislators saying, like, and this is how we gauge, like protecting life and whatnot. And I was like, no, it's not. It's brain activity.
Yeah.
And they don't just check for a heartbeat, right? If you have like some kind of autonomic nervous system stuff going on, but there's not brain activity in other
Right.
parts of your brain where you're going to come back and actually, ever be aware.
Right.
Generally, they're just like, hey, this person is gone.
Yeah. And this whole fetal pain thing, there's actually no evidence that a fetus feels pain until, I think the earliest point at which those structures even exist that could transmit pain signals are like 28 weeks. Some people say 30 or even 32 weeks is the earliest. So,
But I saw somebody stand up on a town hall. It was like a Pennsylvania town hall, and she was just like, I want to, deal with this with facts. And she said, the heartbeat is at X weeks, and the feels pain at X weeks, and it's, human. And I just thought, okay, this guy over here is a human being. He's got a heartbeat. He feels pain. Can he use your body without your consent?
Right.
Is that cool?
yeah.
It's just weird. It's like, yeah, they're facts, but maybe use relevant facts.
Well, and that actually brings up something I wanted to talk about, because there's actually relevant case law in this. This is a case from 1978. It actually went to court, okay? So in this case, a guy named Robert McFall, who's 39 years old, was diagnosed with a rare form of blood cancer called aplastic anemia. And in order to survive, he needed a bone marrow transplant. And so he went to his siblings. They tested all his siblings. None of them were a match. They finally tested a cousin, a guy named David Shimp, who was in fact a match. It was a very good match. And anyway, after going through the testing and determining that Shimp was a match, they said, hey, let's schedule this bone marrow transplant because your cousin, Robert McFall, is going to die if he doesn't get this. With the transplant, he would have a 50 to 60% chance of surviving, okay? Shimp said, you know what? I don't want to do it. And the reason he said he didn't want to do it is because he had a dream in which he dreamed that he wouldn't ever come out of the bone marrow donation procedure if he went through with it. And he was married and had kids, and he didn't want to die. And so he refused. Well, this caused like a major rift in the family. And after failing to prevail on him to do the donation, even after doctors explained that it's virtually painless for the donor, he's under anesthesia and there's pain relief and everything, and it wouldn't hurt him, he still refused. So the family, out of desperation, took him to court, and they sued him in court. And the judge came back and said, I find his position morally indefensible, but you can't compel the guy to donate, part of his body to sustain another person's life, even if they're going to die without it.
Yeah.
And so he ruled against McFall, and that ruling came down on, I think, like late July, and McFall died August 10th of that year. So it was, he definitely needed it. But this illustrates how it's very well established in law that you don't require someone to donate any part of their body to someone else, even if that person will die without it. And that's the situation we're in when it comes to an unplanned or unwanted pregnancy. Women are being required to allow another human to use their body in order to not die. That to me is morally indefensible. If I don't have the same bodily autonomy, at least as a corpse, that's pretty gross. And that's the situation we're in.
Yeah, I remember talking about a procedure that I found that was really strange. I think I heard about it on NPR, and I looked into it. And it was just sort of like this time frame where they did this procedure, which was hooking up a baby to the mother to act as a life support system. This is before they had like actual life support systems they could put you on while they did a surgery or whatever. And she just acted like the heart pump to, keep the baby alive. And the women needed to consent to this. It's like, this is the mother, this is the baby, this is the baby's life. And she needed to consent to be hooked up to the baby in order to supply it, like blood, tissue, use of her organs in order to sustain it through the surgery. And you just wonder, it's like, why did she need to sign a consent form?
Right.
Right. Like, what's the purpose of the consent form? And it's because you have to consent to this.
Yes.
Even if it's your own child,
Yes.
Just,
and, I think you've stated this very eloquently many times, is that it's just a fact of biology that if a fetus is removed from its mother's body prior to a certain point in gestation, it will die. That's just biology. And it's unfortunate for the fetus, but
Yeah, women didn't get to vote on that. People with a uterus didn't get to vote on that.
Right.
It's like, that's how it works.
And for the people that say, but surely you don't support abortion right up to the point of birth, there is no such thing, okay? Post-viability, it's called C-section or induction, okay? And the times when you get to make that choice, or, when you have to make that choice in late term, it's not something that women are doing on a whim that, oh, God, I just forgot to get that abortion. Let me go in and get this late-term procedure that, by the way, involves delivering a stillborn child, okay? Because that's how you get the baby out of your body at that point in gestation. So, none of this stuff is something that women do on a whim. Are there some people that are irresponsible? Of course. But restricting abortion access is not the way to make people more responsible. And if somebody's that irresponsible, do you actually want them to raise a child? Come on.
It's an interesting, one of the interesting subtext is that by promoting that women can't make responsible decisions about their own bodies, what you're actually promoting is that women in no way would be responsible to trust with seats of government.
Yeah.
Right? It's like this is a way to undermine women's competency like all the way around. It goes beyond just reproductive choices. If I can't even make healthcare decisions about myself, if I have to be told what to do with my body because I'm just, I can't figure it out, whether or not I should have a medical procedure. What does that say about as a society, how does that undermine people's confidence in women and their competency?
Yeah. Well, and another thing I would point out that's a little bit more ominous, but it's this. If the state can tell you that you can't have an abortion, that same state can tell you that you must have an abortion. If they can control that aspect of your life, then they have control over the whole thing.
It's always weird how that works, right? So somebody was talking about, they had somebody, I guess, that was on social media that was arguing about whoever's the biological, sperm donor for this, new human being, that they should have some say in whether or not, like, the pregnancy goes forward or not, right? Mm-hmm. And I was just like, how does that even work, right? Because these things only work in their heads one way, right? So basically they would say, oh, I want the guy to be able to step in and stop her from having an abortion because he wants her to have the baby. And it's like, so, but what if he steps in and says, I don't want a kid, so she has to abort?
Yeah.
You're not really, you can't give somebody, that's not giving somebody a say in it, that's giving them control of it.
Right.
Right?
Exactly.
You can't.
Well, and there was one guy, and I can't remember which state he was from, but he basically said that quiet part out loud, where he basically said, yeah, the woman's just the host. She actually needs the man's permission to do whatever she wants to do.
I'm sure there's some folks
like,
that feel that way. I saw a pro-lifer on one of the networks, and they were, or I guess it was a cable channel. I guess it's not a network. I don't know. Maybe they are networks. But they were talking about the one young woman, the 12-year-old, that had gotten pregnant via repeated rape. And one of the things that the pro-lifer said was, because the person that was the host described that situation, and she's like, well, this bill has no exception for rape. Like, surely you don't condone forcing somebody. Do you support that part of the bill that, would require this person, this 12-year-old, to carry to term? And the guy said, well, you're talking about an innocent child there in the womb.
Yeah.
And I just it floored me.
Yeah. Because
I thought he's talking about this child, and of course there should be, but no. Yeah. No, she's. So the person doing the interview did call that out and say, the 12-year-old is an innocent child too.
Yeah.
And he's just like, well, yeah, let's hand wave that. But it's just something else. I don't know.
Well, and I guess I'd like to.
At least he's consistent, right?
Yeah, but I'd like to wrap this segment up by pointing out that some of the people that voted against the Alabama bill introduced legislation that would require the state to pay for the medical expenses of any child that the state forced a woman to have under this law, pay for all of the health care and medical expenses of any child born under this law until the child was at least 3 years old. And that was voted down like 23 to 8 or something like that.
Yeah, it's not about concern for the life of a child.
Yeah, so they absolutely do not care about the child.
It's about punishment, man.
Yeah.
And that's what it is. All of it is geared toward making sure that you do have accidents and that you are supremely punished for them.
Well, yeah, because if you wanted to reduce the number of unplanned pregnancies and therefore reduce the need for abortion, you would do what Colorado did, which is make long-term birth control free and easily accessible to, especially to teenage women, but to any woman who needed it.
It's just a don't have sex, and if you do have sex, you need to pay for it.
Yeah. And, of course, now they're making a child into a punishment that a woman has imposed on her for having sex.
It's a little
yes.
blessing.
It's a blessing, but it's a punishment.
Yeah, and with that,